Manx Radio Sport.
Thanks very much to Beth for this evening's update. Just gone 5:30 on a Friday evening. Good evening and welcome along to Friday's sport preview for Friday the 31st of January. Simon Quine with you through until 6:30 this evening. Coming up, we'll be joined by Tony Mepham looking at this weekend's football fixtures. We'll also have a preview of the FC Isle of Man game. We'll hear from Paul Jones as the Ravens take on Irlam at the Bowl tomorrow evening. Dave Christian joining me to talk about rugby. 3 games to discuss tomorrow on the schedule. And after 6 o'clock, Ben Cunningham will be here to look at hockey this weekend as we see league action return. But as promised, let's start off with football. And Tony, before we get into this weekend's fixtures, we discussed on the programme last week the resignation of Blaine Slattery as the Isle of Man national men's team manager. There's been some developments on that story this week at the FA.
Yeah, it's all good news as well, Simon, which is good for football because, Blaine explained to the players his reasons, work commitments and everything else, family commitments, and he couldn't continue. So we had a meeting that evening just to see where we went, but we'd sort of known for a couple of days anyway that Blaine was stepping down, and we were just putting places or positions in place, and it was more, there was no discussion about the manager, it was just more where we go. Mm-hmm. And we brought the senior players into it, and obviously Sean Gritton, who's the chairman of the Ireland selection, myself as president, and one or two other people. And it just came out of the blue, really, that Chris Bass was very interested in taking over the role, and I'm delighted that got full support, and that's a major coup for us. And then his team behind him, as we all know, Rick Holden's probably the highest qualified coach on the island and has been there, got the T-shirt. But Rick's been sort of coaching again this year with Peel and doing a terrific job. And it's nice that the island captain could just vouch for him and just saying how well he's done. And, he's really got his appetite back to coach again. And I'd only spoken to him about 6 weeks ago, just said, "Where are you with us?" And he goes, "You know where I am. Just give us a ring and I'll be there to help you out." And he's come back into the team, and with Matthew Woods there as well. It's absolutely fantastic that we have 3 people of that calibre who have taken the role on to get us to Orkney and hopefully bring back the gold.
And that's what we discussed on the programme last week before that appointment was made, was in terms of how the FA are going to approach this. So these are caretaker positions, are they, to get through the Island Games, and then it'll be reassessed, presumably?
We'll probably have a look at it, but certainly I think Chris, I was surprised that he might have been interested, to be honest with you, because he's still a player, and it is a player manager's role because Chris is still playing at the highest level, and it was just so fitting that he wanted to do it. And I think what helps is he's already got the link with the players, Simon. Mm-hmm. The players there have been training with him, they know of him, and there's just total admiration with the guy because he's filtering things through all the training sessions, and now he's going to be doing it as a manager. And with Rick alongside him, it'll be great. And, there's 1 or 2 players already come back in. Rhys Oates has come back into the squad, Dan Simpson as well. It's not a question of changing the whole squad. It's more of the players that are in there are very, very young. So they need to learn from these players. And it's up to them to, get their names on that flight sheet when it goes away to Orkney. And it's up to the older players to pass on their ability to try and enhance their their standard of football for the games.
And Chris took the first training session on Wednesday, I believe, was it? So he's had a bit of time with the players now as well and everything. Yeah,
it was last Wednesday. I had a players meeting with them. It explained 100% commitment was required. The training sessions would be tough because they've lost a little bit of time in prepping up. Don't forget, we've got a lot of Manx football still to be played as well. So, God forbid, I just hope that none of the players get injured. But no, I'm absolutely buzzing, Simon, because we were left with a real, problem, to try and find someone to do it. And, Chris is champing at the bit and he just wants to get going.
OK, Tony, thank you very much for that. Let's move on to this weekend's fixtures then, and we'll start off in the Canada Life Men's Premier League. All the games this weekend, 2 o'clock kickoffs, and we'll start right down the bottom of the fixture list. The game you were at last week was Corinthians against Peel. We know all about that, 7-4. Peel will be looking to bounce back from that, which they'll need to do, because it's very, very tight at the top of the table, and they take on Union Mills.
Yeah, it is tight, and maybe a couple of weeks ago, Simon, you would have said that Union Mills were were looking quite good for this game, but Union Mills had that defeat last week as well, so that was a bit of a surprise. But Peel, I think it was just towards the end it all seemed to go wrong for them in that game against Corinthians. But I believe there's a couple of older, more experienced players coming back in, and that's Daniel Bell and also Dan Lace is coming into the squad, I believe. Everybody else is still there, but whatever happened last week, great start, great first half. But the second half, and it wasn't the wind or anything else, it was just the way Corinthians set themselves up, and some fantastic finishing by João Marquez got the result for them. But Peel against Union Mills, Ryan Kelly will be disappointed just with the way it went for them last week, and certainly he'll be looking to correct that. And I think they've got the players there. Dominic McCarry-Brennan, superb in front of goal. And then when you look at other players in there, Owen Quayle's been superb at the back. You got Mason Prince in there as well. And you just look at Jordan Crowley in the middle, pulling the strings for the midfield. It's going to be a tough game. I think Peel might just sneak it, purely for the pressure that they have to get the 3 points, really, because Corinthians are breathing down their neck, certainly Ayr as well. But I think Union Mills, if they can get it together, can make it very difficult for them.
And this is the game in hand for Peel, isn't it, as well? So this is really sort of critical. They get these 3 points, and then when they're on games played the same, they sort of know where they stand then.
Exactly, and when you look at the league tables, they play 24, Simon. So games are starting to run out for these clubs now. But, Peel don't want it to let it slip, and last week was a big slip because 3-1 at half-time against a team that's chasing them down. They needed to get something, and they didn't. So it's important that they get full 3 points against Union Mills.
OK, we'll go back up to the top of the fixture list now. St George's against Foxdale. Really important St George's keep picking up points here, because it's probably, looking at the table, going to be between them and Onchan who go down, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right with that one. I think with St George's as well, the way that they've been performing of late has been pretty good, to be fair. I know they haven't sort of had a couple of wins, which might have been a little bit closer, but I think Johnny Myers is happy enough with the way they're going. As you noticed, the Irlam manager, Chris Bass, scored in the last game, so that was important for them. Foxdale, a little bit of a false position at the moment, purely because they've got all them games in hand to play. If they pick up quite a few points in that, then they'll lift themselves into a good place. But, again, forward lines for Foxdale is strong. St George's defensively, just depends. Sean Quay and the likes are playing in there. It's going to be a tough old game, but I'm going to go just on current form at the moment for St George's just to take the win.
OK. Ayr again looking to keep the pressure on the top two, because they've got a couple of games in hand over Corinthians as well. They take on Rusham.
Yeah, and if they won those 2 games in hand, then it puts them right up there with Peel and Corinthians on the same points. But Rusham, when you look at their last 2 performances, scoring plenty of goals and not conceding any, which is brilliant. So whatever Andrew Moody's pumped into the players' heads, he's getting results as well. So Rusham are really banging form. And when you look at, again, people have been scoring the goals. Aaron Hawley, Steve Riding has been right in there. Scott Mason, congratulations on your under-21 Player of the Month. They're looking really strong, but Ayr United just haven't really been able to cover for Johnny Shields' loss with that injury that he's had. So Nick Hurt knows he's got to pull something out of the bag to try and get something out of this one. But the way Ayr are going at the moment, you just wonder if Rusham can sneak some points out of this. We'll wait and see, but I'm hoping that Ayr win it. Nothing against Rusham, just purely to keep this title race at the top of the table so close.
OK, Onchan, again, very much like we just mentioned, like St George's need to keep getting points on the board. They welcome St Mary's. That'll be a tricky game for them. Yeah,
it will be a tricky game and a tricky surface, I would think, because that bit of rain that we had last night would have helped things. But on paper, Onchan defensively look okay, to be fair, because they're just losing by the odd goal here and there. I know it was 3 last week, but St Mary's have got some real good players in there. Carl Clark, you look at Josh Evans, probably there at the back as well. You look at Frank Jones will be playing in there. I don't think Jack McVeigh will play, because he'll play for FC Isle of Man. So it depends what team they've got out. But even if they're 1 or 2 short, I still think they're strong enough to take it, and that's St Mary's.
OK, Laxey against Moran.
Well, Moran need to get some points as well, Simon, if they're going to sort of stay up. Laxey, I was speaking to the manager last week, and it's just hard to understand. 1 week they're brilliant, next week they really struggle. But, he's got the players there, and, Eric Hill, what a signing he's been. I know he's been there for a while, but, this year, I think... last year he might have played a few senior goals, but he's only a young lad. But to get a hat-trick, absolutely brilliant. And, Moran, again, just got to try and get goals. It's been a real struggle for David Bruce's team, so I'm going to go for Laxey to pick up another 3 points.
I think it's interesting you just mentioned there. I know they've had a couple of big results in the last few weeks, a couple of heavy defeats, but you look at Laxey's goal difference in the table where they are, that Peel are plus 33, Corinthians plus 26, Ayr plus 21, Ramsey plus 1, Laxey minus 3.
Yeah, and it's hard to say because, that's down to defence, and when you look at people like Tom Cowan there, really good players, but up front, Brodie Patience has missed quite a few games. It was nice to see Eric Hill coming in, but I think the problem is with Johnny, he's got so many good young players there. He's brought them in to help them, and sometimes maybe physically it's not gone to plans for them, but they're certainly a good side, and they'll be looking to see if they can continue in the cups as well.
Okay, last game in Canada Life Men's Premier League that we'll look at is Ramsey against St John's United. Yeah,
this is going to be an open game, this, and had some photographs sent to me this afternoon of Ramsey's pitch, and they're working with the machines on it this afternoon. A little bit here and there, but should be fine. I think the weather forecast that I've seen tonight is good. Once again, the man in form for Ramsey is Dylan Pickles, scoring the goals, and he won the trophy for Player of the Month this month. But I think Anthony Cooper and Andy Perry know that they've got a good side, but St John's are so difficult. Sam Ingham will probably play at the centre-back role. He comes back from suspension, and we'll just wait and see how it goes for Sam's team. But, Ramsey, when you look at it, league table there, they're right back in there, aren't they, towards the top. Yeah. They've done really well, and I think they might just pip St John's on this one.
Well, that's it. I mean, I know they've played a few more games, but they're only 3 points behind Ayr, as are Laxey. So, they're all in the mix of the top 5 there.
Yeah, and they had a terrible start as well, Ramsey, so it's incredible how they've turned it around, and credit to the players.
Okay, where are you going to be tomorrow?
I'm going to St George's and Foxdale.
Okay.
I just think it's going to be a goodie.
Okay, all right, we'll move on to Arden and Druggen Limited Division 2. Just the 4 games in this division, again, all 2 o'clock kick-offs, and we start off with a Southern derby, Maloo against Castletown.
Yeah, and a bit of news on this one for you, Simon. It's just come in. This game has gone because Maloo's pitch, there's a bit of a problem with that one, so we've lost that game, so that'll be rearranged, and before you ask, we'll put it in with the rest. I was looking at them last night just to do some calcs for you, and to be honest with you, it took me that amount of time to see how many games, because quite a few building up now. I can't help you out on that one.
Right, we don't need to preview that one then. Governors Athletic against Colby.
Yeah, Governors Athletic got a game in the ECAP FA Cup next week as well. Colby, just depends what sort of team is available or players are available. So we'll wait and see how that one goes. But Governors can make it difficult. But I think at the moment Colby are hoping to, get in that top 4 berth place at the end of the season, getting the Paul Henry Gold Cup, and I think they'll just win this one.
Okay, Douglas Royal against Ramsey Youth Centre and Old Boys. This will be a good game as well, Ramsey. You want to keep the pressure on the top 2.
Yeah, they're in that 3rd place, aren't they? And I watched them recently in a cup game against Maloo, and they've got some really good young players in there. And they've just got to keep chipping away. But when you look at Douglas Royal, they've built a little bit of momentum as well. They're playing a lot better. A lot of new players there coming, made that team a lot stronger. But I think Ramsey Youth Centre with a huge game next week. It really is against Ramsey in the Cup. Northern Derby, I'm sure Town's going to be busy. And I think this will be one for the players just to get themselves into that team selection for next week. And I'll go for Ramsey Youth Centre to win.
Okay, and the final game in Arden and Druggen Limited Division 2 sees Pulrose take on Douglas and District.
Yeah, and Douglas and District, bottom of the table, doesn't sort of help things, does it? Players will be a little bit disappointed where they are. Richard Radcliffe, as I've said many times, has been the main goal scorer for them, but Pulrose, I think, have had a really good season, to be fair. I think the team down there have acquitted themselves well, and they've had some really good fixtures, good games, good results, a lot of good positives coming for the club. I think on this one I'm going to go for Pully to take the win.
Okay, Tony. Just before we move on to the combi games, one thing we mentioned in the full-time show last week was the damage at Michael's ground after the storm, and unfortunately some both trees down, and then there's some structural damage to dugouts, and did you say there's some goals damaged as well? Yeah. I mean, obviously, nobody ever wants to see that happen, because the work that goes into that, the cost that goes into that. Yeah. Have you had any more news on that in terms of? Yeah,
we've had news. Yeah, and thanks to Michael, and well done to everyone. Michael Corlett got into sent me a text last week just what the damage was, and it was absolutely horrendous. He sent me some pictures, and it's hard to run a football club, Simon. It costs a lot of money because, the facilities and everything to pay for, and they've got a huge facility down there to run, but the posts were wrecked, the dugouts were wrecked, there's damage on the pitch. I think there's a problem with the boiler happened where the water got into it, whatever. Anyway, from what I'm hearing, they've got the power back up and running. They're happy with everything to host the game, which is brilliant. But everyone that's played a part down there, and it's been a bit of a community job as well, I think. Credit to you all, because that's tough. I've seen some of the damage down there, and that's horrendous to have to face that when you're just a club that raises a few pounds to try and keep things going in the football team. So, yeah, well done to everybody.
That's great to see everybody chipping in to help there. OK, we move on to Canada Life Combination 1. All of these games 2 o'clock kickoffs, with the exception of St Mary's against Onchan at the Bowl, which is at 1:45. And I've just misplaced my league tables, but we'll start off with Russian United against Ayr.
Well, as you'll see in your league table, your top 3, you've got Onchan, Russian, and you've got Ramsey up there. So, yes, it's a northern game, but northern against Southern, but it's one of those that Ayr United, I think, are losing quite a few players at the moment going into the first team. Russian are so strong, and I just can't see Ayr United doing it. Russian to take the points.
St Mary's against Onchan again. Onchan with a couple of games in hand. Level on points with the Russian, but they'll be wanting to build on that. Only lost 1 game all season. Yeah,
they're looking really good, aren't they? And you keep looking at it and you just think, how are they going to do? I think it was last week they were playing one of the top sides and it got postponed. But certainly in this, it was you'd have to go for Onchan to win it. I think St Mary's at the moment 1 or 2 players down, but that bowl pitch is a big pitch to play on, and it can be very, very tiring. So I just think it might just play in the younger players of Onchan's favour.
OK, Marown against Laxey. This could be a big game at the bottom of the table come the end of the season.
Yeah, it is. And I think Laxey, again, their results have improved of late as well. And they've had a couple of good results, as well with Marown. A bit like the first team, just find it a little bit tough. So I'm going to go for Laxey to win. OK, St John's United take on Ramsey. This is, again, another big top 3. Potential top 3, anyway, 3rd and 4th at the moment. It is, but I just think, Ramsey will just not necessarily stroll it, but they'll win it comfortably in the end, because I think St John's, again, they've got players missing. Liam Sales, a regular goal scorer for them, so he's away at the moment, I think, so that's going to be a problem for them, and I just think that'll be the difference. I think, over the years, Liam's been a consistent scorer for him, and not just 1 goal, 2 goals, he'll go 3-4 as well, so I think Ramsey will take the result. OK, moving on to Arden and Drung Limited Combination 2. First game is Douglas Athletic against Douglas High School and Old Boys. Old Boys, I'm going to go for Old Boys to win it. Douglas Athletic, I think Wolper and Ulrich signed for them just before the deadline of the 31st of December. So with him in there, keeping things nice and tight at the back, I have to go for a good battle in this one, but I just think Old Boys are too strong in front of goal. OK, staying at the top of the table with Colby as they take on Governors Athletic. Yeah, and you look at Colby way ahead, aren't they? The points and everything's going right for them, and I don't think it'll alter tomorrow. I'll go for Colby. OK, Ramsey Youth Centre second in the table at the moment, take on Douglas Royal. Yeah, it'd have to be a major collapse to let themselves in against Colby. Against Douglas Royal, I expect them to win, so I've got to go with Ramsey Youth Centre and Old Boys home victory. OK, this is a tight game in the middle of the table. Paul Rose against Douglas and District. Both sat on 19 points at the moment with more or less identical records throughout the season. Yeah, they are, but, with Paul Rose, it's the same scenario again, that they've brought players in. The players now have got used to each other, how they play, and they've looked pretty good. And as you say, in that mid-table there, there's a good little battle going on with teams around them. But I just think they'll just be a little bit too strong on the day for Douglas and District, with them sort of just struggling a little bit. First team, they may be tinkering around, taking some of the combination players out to try things out, and that might just hamper how strong they are. OK, and the final game in Combination 2, Michael United against Jims. Yeah, and as I say, when you go down there, might be worth taking the change. Oh, you might get a few logs for the old wood burner if you want them, but I think, Jims and Michael have had real tough seasons, to be fair, but hopefully, I know there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes for Jims. We'll give you a preview what's happening when it all comes out, but I've been speaking to someone who obviously is going to go down and possibly be the manager, and I think he's a nice fit for that club, so we'll wait for that to be officially announced. But at the moment, I just think Michael might just sneak this one, just with everyone working so hard together. That might come out on the pitch as well.
Okay, Tony, just a couple more fixtures on Sunday to tell you about Canada Life Women's League. Both 2 o'clock kickoffs. Peel take on Malou and Douglas Royal against Corinthians. And in the Masters football, Colby take on Onchan at 2:10 at the Bowl, and Corinthians against the Douglas and District at 20-4 at the Bowl. Before we hear from Paul Jones ahead of FC Isle of Man's game against Irlam at the Bowl tomorrow evening, Tony, just your reaction to last week's game. What a last 6 minutes or so, I think it probably was.
Yeah.
I was out. I didn't hear any of the commentary, I must confess. Well, I'm sure you and Rob did a stellar job, as you always do. What had the game been like up to the 91st minute? Did it have that in it? Did you think that was how it was going to finish?
Not really. I thought it was, to be fair, quite tight. I think when Adam Adibayi got sent off, I just thought that, well, that's it now. It's gone. But I don't know. It's just FC Isle of Man's mentality, where they just seem to be able to get that second bit of wind and just keep going things. And I think, it was just one of them, keep going. And AFC Liverpool were having a good go as well. And then when Jacob scored, Jacob Crook, you just thought, well, that's it. What was it? Something like 92 minutes, I think it was, Sam. It was 2 minutes into added time. And then they scored. It's just going all against them. And then Steve Whitley, who's just such a quality player. Steve just had an opportunity to have a go. He had to dig at it, and in it went. And that was 96 minutes. And then by the time the ball went back to the middle, that was all over. It was absolutely fantastic. And the just looking at the players' faces, they were so down, elated when they scored, down when they conceded, and then when Steve put that second goal in to give them the 3 points, it was just absolutely mental. It was brilliant. And I don't know if you've heard Rob's goal-scoring commentary. My word, the voice was so high and he was so excited. I think that's why he's off this week, because he lost his voice probably.
To recover from it. Well, hopefully there'll be more action like that at the Bowl tomorrow evening, as we've just touched on. It was a dramatic last-gasp victory 6 days ago for FC Isle of Man. They'll be hunting for success again. They host Irlam in the North West Counties Football League Premier Division tomorrow evening. The Ravens beat their latest opponents earlier in the season, but Irlam heads the island in red-hot form, unbeaten in their last 11 games and winning 7 in that time. FC Isle of Man manager Paul Jones explains how much of a boost last week's win has had on the confidence in the group after a recent barren run. He was asked ahead of the weekend if Saturday's tie against a fellow playoff rival is being seen as a 6-pointer.
Yeah, really confident. We've been confident all season, but I think the way we played, we were very happy with both how we played all through the game, and then going down to 10 men and still looking to keep the ball and be on the front foot. And yeah, I think winning the game in the way we did isn't necessarily the one you want, or way you want to win as a manager, in terms of conceding a goal a minute after scoring a goal and then having to go and win the game again for the second time all in the space of 4 minutes. But that in itself gives a lot of energy and confidence. Too often this season we've been on the opposite end of that, and the away game at AFC Liverpool, we lost in the last minute. So we've had that happen to us too many times this season. So it's really good for everybody to get that burst of energy and confidence from not just getting 3 points, but from doing it in a fairly dramatic and exciting way.
Coming up against an Irlam side that are banging form at the moment, but also one of your rivals, if you like, in the table, looking for those playoff places, and 7 points off the playoffs at the moment. People talked about the importance of last weekend's game and maybe getting a result. Does this feel like a bit of a proverbial 6-pointer in some ways?
I'm not really thinking of it like that. There's plenty of games left to play. Irlam, where we played them very early on in the season and beat them 3-1 at their place, but they were one of the teams that really impressed us in the first half of the season with the players that they've got and how they tried to go about doing what they were doing, and we just were very good on the night and also defended exceptionally well. So it's a very winnable game for us, but as you say, they're one of the second in the form table at the moment, so we've got a big test on our hands. And yes, I'm not going to lie, it would do our kind of playoff chases a massive benefit by winning on Saturday, but it also is not going to write them off completely if we don't. So it's more important that we focus on delivering a similar level of performance to the one that we put out last Saturday against AFC Liverpool, and maybe just be a little bit more clinical when we create the chances that we're creating at the moment. And we should do okay.
It seemed to give the home supporters especially a real lift, that late win last weekend. And you and the players have spoken many, many times about just how much the support means. But to have that behind you, do you feel stronger at home when you've got that support behind you, particularly when you've got such a big run of home games coming up? And how can you also repay that a little bit to the supporters?
Yeah, well, we hope that we repay it every time we go out there by giving it our all and our best, and they see that and they recognise that. I think we have spoken a lot about how important those supporters are, especially at home, and we felt that on Saturday, and it felt like we all got that result together, and we'll need a lot more of that over the rest of the season. And I think you're right. Like, you know, I've had lots of positive comments, not just about the result, but how we played to get that result on Saturday. And I feel like there's a bit more belief amongst the following than there maybe was from the weeks previously, which is great, and that expectation maybe has risen again, which is great, and we've got to kind of use that as a real positive and use that energy off the pitch to really propel us forwards on the pitch.
And in terms of the squad itself, there were a couple of setbacks during the game against AFC Liverpool. Adam Adebayo now suspended after being sent off after picking up 2 yellows in the game. We also saw Jack Kamada, Cal Watson and Callum Sherry also were struggling with injuries toward the end of the game, with a couple of those leaving the field as well. So what's the latest on them and the squad in general?
Yeah, Adam misses this Saturday and then is back available again for Bury onwards. Jack's back at university. He goes back through the week and has been assessed, and that looks like it'll be a good few weeks for him with his ankle. Kyle settled really quickly, and we're hopeful he won't be out for as long as we feared initially. It looked like it was a bad hamstring strain, but it doesn't look to be as serious as we feared. And similarly with Callum, you know, they've both settled down really, really quickly. So we'll assess them again, you know, towards the end of the week and again on Saturday. Saturday might be a little bit too close for them, but I know both of them are really keen to be involved as quickly as they can. But if they're not quite right for Saturday, you know, we're not going to risk them. We've got a really strong squad. Players being unavailable give very good players an opportunity to show why they're in the squad. So whoever we have in the squad on Saturday, I'm expecting a really strong, positive performance.
Paul Jones speaking ahead there of FC Isle of Man's game at the Bowl tomorrow evening. They host Irlam in the North West Counties Football League Premier Division. 6 o'clock kickoff as always at the Bowl. Just a note for you that due to operational reasons there'll be no live match commentary of tomorrow evening's match between FC Isle of Man and Irlam. The next scheduled live commentary of FC Isle of Man here on Manx Radio is Saturday the 15th of February, when they'll face Barnoldswick Town at the Bowl. Coming up after the latest news at 6 o'clock, Dave Christian with rugby and Ben Cunningham with hockey.
Manx Radio Sport.
6.5 minutes after 6 o'clock on your Friday evening. It's the Friday Sport Preview with Simon Quine through until 6:30. Welcome along to the second half of the programme. Coming up in the next 23 or so minutes, we'll hear from Dave Christian as we look ahead to 3 home games for rugby this weekend, and we'll also get a look ahead to the Under-16 Cheshire Bowl semi-final, which takes place on Sunday. Ben Cunningham joining me to look about hockey as league action returns, and we'll also try and fit in hearing about Manx pro cyclist Tyler Hannay, who's taken a big step forward in his career in 2024 and looks ahead to 2025, and a Manx Grand Prix regular who's making the step up to the TT in 2025. But as promised, let's start off with rugby, and Dave Christian joins me in the studio this evening. Good evening, Dave.
Hello.
It's a fairly rare occurrence, we were just talking about this off air, to have 3 home games. You're spoilt for choice, aren't you, tomorrow?
Yeah, indeed, and it was not that long ago we had 3 away games, so we'll take it when we can, I guess is the best way. Start at the top of the heap, I guess. Douglas against Burnage. That's a 2 o'clock kickoff, and rather confusingly, the kickoff times are all over the show, and that's for a variety of reasons. Normally, travelling arrangements for the visiting sides, so don't be too deterred by that. But 2 o'clock kickoff at Portachee. It's Douglas against Burnage. There's not much between them on paper. Yeah, Burnage are in 5th place, Douglas are in 8th. So there's 3 league places between them. But in terms of results, I think Burnage have won 7, Douglas won 6. Burnage have got a draw in there, and I think Douglas might have played 1 fixture more. But on paper, at least, there's not that much difference. In the away leg, Burnage won that one 42-27 from memory. But Douglas picked up 2 losing bonus points that day. A try bonus point that day. So they scored 4 tries. So they know that they're capable of getting through the Burnage defence. And with the 2 teams immediately above Douglas in the table, Widnes and Altrincham Kersal, they're both playing the top guys this weekend. One's at Sandbach, the other at Forward Waterloo. A win for Douglas with 4, or potentially, dare I even say, at 5 points. They could pull a league place or 2, and on paper at least, they're on course for a 5th place finish and a top 5 finish a few months back when they'd had a run of defeats will be something of an achievement for the team. I've got the starting team. I'm not going to go through it one by one, but the first thing that strikes me from looking at that Douglas team for tomorrow is that it's very, very similar to the team that won away last week. And one thing that's really important in League Rugby is consistency of selection. If you get a team of guys that are playing together week in, week out, or certainly a big nucleus that are playing week in, week out, they improve much, much quicker. If you have to chop and change lots of players in key positions, it's going to be a problem for you because there's no continuity in the team. So looking at that Douglas team, most of the guys that are out there are ones who played last week. Front row in particular, Phil Kringle, the coach himself, Giard Vizagi and Owen Carvin, having the same front row in, week out, is a big bonus for them. The guy they'll miss, I guess, from the forwards is Simon Hardenot. He's so important for them. He can play anywhere in the pack and probably that push in the centres as well. He's a big unit, but he's very mobile. Scrummages well, does everything right. And missing Simon tomorrow, I'm going to stick my neck out and say it's probably internationals. We've got games on in the Six Nations, and that always creates a little bit of problem availability, certainly within the team. Liam Kirkpatrick back at number 8. That's brilliant. And a great bench as well. Harry Hewson, who can play just about anywhere in the back line. Blake Everson. I know he picked up, I think he picked up a yellow card last week, but he's the man you want wrestling for the ball on the ground. He's very low centre of gravity. He gets right over the ball and it's very difficult to dislodge. A proper Yorkshire Terrier. So Blake Everson on the bench, ready to come on and slot in wherever he's needed. The one missing name that I don't see on that team sheet is Bryn Snellgrove. Bryn's been very important for them in the number 10 jersey because of the way he organises stuff on the pitch. However, he's probably nearer the end of his playing career than the beginning, and I'm sure he'll admit that himself. And parachuting him in for home games doesn't give that continuity that the team really needs. So Josh Duncan gets the number 10 jersey. He had it last week as well, and I think he probably had it the week before. So given that Nathan Robson, Josh Duncan 9-10 combination be just what they want, I've got my fingers crossed for them. I think they can win this one.
You mentioned there, Dave, about the continuity, which, in a lot of sport, that's what you want. You want to consistently have the same 5 or 6 players at least in a team. Obviously, when it comes to this, you mentioned sort of the internationals there. There'll be injuries, there'll be work commitments people will have. It must be really difficult to find that continuity when you're trying to pull all these different factors in.
It definitely is, Simon, particularly for away games. You end up, I'm associated with Ramsey Rugby Club. We're not currently playing in the English League system. When we were, it was almost like having sometimes a home side and an away side. The away side, you'd take anybody who'd volunteered to travel, and the home games, you'd try and get your best team out. And the seasons that we did well were the ones where we had a team that was prepared to travel. So the players who pitched in and committed at the start of the season were still there at the end, willing to travel to the away games. And that's a difficult ask. You're out of bed at 5:30. You're not getting back till 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And if you're married with a young family, there's the domestic pressure, not only the financial stuff, with not being able to do your work on a Saturday morning potentially. So it's very difficult, and I take my hat off to everybody who has done it and continues to do it now. But yeah, consistency of selection is the important one, and you can actually look through the RFU stats on englandrugby.com and get the team sheets for each individual week, and you can plot the number of changes there are, and you can see why teams are successful and why they're not successful.
Okay, let's move on to the Counties 3, ADM, Lancashire, Cheshire, Vagabonds at home against Clitheroe, Balafletcher at 1:30. Yeah,
1:30, and I'm sure that'll be down to Clitheroe's travelling arrangements as well. I don't have as much positivity about the potential result here. Vagabonds had a big defeat away at Clitheroe, 82-7 or something like that earlier on in the season. Now, I know that wasn't a full-strength side that's gone away, and I know they've had 2 wins out of 3 at Balafletcher since Christmas. Great win last week was really the order of the day. Against opposition who really thought they were going to come here and win. Fleetwood were much higher up the table, and they'd given a big reversal the other side. So I think Clitheroe may be a little bit different. They're still up there with a shot maybe at challenging for promotion. Looking at the Vaggers team, no massive changes. They will, however, miss Tom Gascoigne. He scored 2 last week against Fleetwood. He's not available. Leandro Marquez is going to take his place in the back row. Gavin Turnbull also dropping into the back row with Matty Jones. Outside in the back line, the only change there really, Cam Finley's not going to start. So there's a bit of a shuffle around. Archie Benson's going to go at fullback. The 2 wings will stay the same, Tom Neeson and Regan Williams. But a little bit of a change in the centres. Cal Donnell will start. He was on the bench last week, and he'll partner Paul Howard. They're an experienced pair. They've worked together. And at scrum half and standoff as well as another experienced pair, Matty Williams and the skipper Dan Bonwick. Bonwick scored twice last week. He's definitely worth at least 10 points every game he plays. And well, let's see what Clitheroe bring. It's international weekend. Clubs get probably in the thick end of 20 tickets for an England home game. They get less for an away game. I know England are away in Dublin, and the ticket expectancy is not quite as big. I think they'll be lucky if they get 2, maybe 4. But players like to go to the internationals. Yeah. Scotland are at home. It's easy to get tickets up there. So I think we've got a lot of players maybe missing. And if Clitheroe are missing a handful, then Vaggers are in with a sporting chance.
OK, Dave, final game tomorrow is in the Manx Shield. It's up at the Merrick Park. It's Ramsey against Western Vikings. And just to keep people on their toes, this is a 2:15 kickoff.
Yeah, what we did domestically is probably about 15 years ago now. We said all Isle of Man domestic matches would start at 2:15 unless both clubs and the referee agreed otherwise. It gives consistency. You don't need to worry about daylight saving. Rugby's 10 minutes shorter than football as well. So you always get finished even in the middle of December. Ramsey and Western Vikings, on paper, should be a straightforward Ramsey win. They've played 2 friendlies at home so far since Christmas and lost them both. So I see on the club chat that the skipper's been there reminding the players that we have had 2 defeats at home and asking them to up their game. Missing a couple of players, scrum half, Sam Corlett's missing. And as is the centre, Jake Richmond. They've both gone to Murrayfield to watch the Scotland game. I know that for sure. But Brandon Atchison comes back in the centre. He's been the leading try scorer for the past 2 seasons. He's had a concussion, but he appears to be recovered from that. And pretty much it's a full-strength side. I think all the big players are there on that team sheet. I'm not going to bother running through it, but that should be enough for Western Vikings, who've been struggling a little bit this season. And remains to be seen whether or not they're going to be able to field a side. Hopefully I'll get that chase down tonight. If we can be guaranteed that Vikings will have 15 aside, that's going to be our feature game for Saturday Live.
OK. Sorry, Dave. Go on.
Otherwise, I think we'll have a look at Vagabonds versus Clitheroe. We'll see if this Vagabonds resurgence keeps going.
OK, Dave, just the one game on Sunday in the Under-16s Cheshire Bowl semi-final. Coldie against Southern Nomads, and as travelling game, but there's 10 o'clock kick-off this one.
Yeah, slightly sad story. I won't elaborate too much, but the Cheshire Cup is a difficult experience, particularly when the organising committee need to squeeze the fixtures out to keep continuity going in the competition. Nomads had a miss due to weather and travel difficulties, and they've had to forfeit their game in the Cup competition. It means they drop into the Bowl. Now, they've been going great guns in the Cup. They've had 2 fantastic wins and big wins against quality sides. So dropping down a level should mean they're... I'm going to say they're a big fish in a small pond, but not really, because Coldie are a National League side, and Coldie will be fancying their chances for this one. It's a competition semi-final. The Nomads guys are right up for it. I've got my fingers crossed that they can make a final.
All right, Dave, thank you very much. Back tomorrow afternoon on Saturday Live with Paul Moranen in the Classifieds with an update. Whatever game it is you end up going to, you'll be here with some updates from it.
Manx Radio Sport.
Just approaching 6:20. Let's move on to hockey. Ben Cunningham joining me in the studio, and we're back in league action this week. Ben, we'll start off in the Men's Premier League. We'll go through these in chronological order. 12:35 is the first game of the day at Castle Rush, and Castletown A taking on Belkires B.
Yeah, and this is the second time that these two sides have met each other in 2 weeks. Of course, they met last week in the Cup, and Castletown A came away really comfortably with the win there. Back to league action. Castletown looked really good last weekend against Valkyries B. Last week there was a few slip-ups for them. Possibly they've had chance to work on them in training, but I think it's going to be a Castletown win again on the day.
Okay, and move on then to probably the big game of the day, 2:05 at the NSC, Backers A against Vikings A.
Yeah, this is a huge game. This is the top two teams meeting each other this weekend. Of course, Vikings, the current reigning champions. Backers, though, are ahead at the top of the league on goal difference. So this is a real big game for both teams. Both teams coming into it with a 100% record. Neither team will want to lose it, but it could be a step towards that promotion, to winning that title at the end of the season. We've seen it in the mixed seasons, in the mixed leagues, where when they play each other for the first time, it could be crucial. This could be crucial in this aspect.
Okay, the final game then in Men's Premier League is again 2:05 at the Western at QE2, Harlequins A against Valkyries A.
Who are meeting again for the second time in 2 weeks as well, due to cup action. Of course, Valkyries last week came away with the win over Harlequins 2-1. I believe that goal came in the last minute, so it was devastation and heartbreak for Harlequins A. I'm sure they'll want to get something out of it. They know that they can probably go and get something out of this game after the performance last weekend. If they can do it again this weekend in league action, who knows, they might take something away from it.
Okay, moving on to the Ladies Premier League, 12:35 is the first game of the day at QE2, Castletown A against Valkyries A.
Yeah, I've got this down as going to be a very close game, I reckon. These two sides, when they've met in numerous years, it's always been end-to-end and very, very closely fought. Castletown, though, coming into this with the current league leaders. Valkyries, though, do have that game in hand, which I think is going to get played soon. So once that gets played, then obviously the tables will all look really good and neat. It's going to be a close one. I think Castletown, though, are going to get it.
Okay, a repeat of one of the men's fixtures actually at 12:35 at King William's College. It's Vikings A against Backers A again, but in the Ladies Premier League this time.
Yeah, I mean, Backers will be looking at this. Of course, Vikings had that shock exit last weekend in the Cup. I think, like I said to you last weekend, I think it's the first time in numerous years that they've been knocked out in the first round. Vikings will definitely want to make amends of it, but Backers will see this as a chance to potentially get one over them.
2:05, last game in the Ladies Premier League, Harlequins A against Ramsey at Ramsey Grammar School.
This one's going to be crucial for both teams. Of course, these two teams at the minute are down the bottom, but these could be the two teams that could be fighting for that to stay up and not be that one in that relegation spot. It's going to be hard. Of course, Ramsey A promoted back up to the Premier League as well. Harlequins, they've been in the Premier League and they will not want to go back down. This is going to be a very close game, I reckon, but I think Harlequins will come out with it.
Moving on then to Men's Division 1, 11:05, Vikings B against Backers B at the NSC.
That's going to be a real tasty one. These two sides, top and second in Men's Division 1. It's going to be a very close game because Backers have been scoring plenty of goals for fun. But Vikings, though, have been scoring goals as well. Whose defence is going to be the best, I think, on the day?
Okay, 25-4 at QE2, Castletown B against Harlequins B.
Yeah, and Harlequins B will know that they'll need to get something from this game, and they do stand a good chance against Castletown B side, who have been scoring plenty of goals, but then, of course, defensively they have let a few in as well. So it's going to be an interesting game. I think I'm gonna stick my neck on the line here. I think Harlequins might get it.
Okay, let's move on then to the last game, Men's Division 1, at 3:35, Backers C against Ramsey A at Ramsey Grammar School.
Yeah, going to be a tough day at the office for Backers C. They haven't had the start that they were hoping. Ramsey A, though, they'll be looking to go and get another victory this weekend. I'm going to go for a Ramsey A win on that one.
Okay, moving on to Ladies Division 1 at 11:05. The first game of the day is at QE2. It's Castletown B against Valkyries B.
Yeah, this is going to be a real close game. Castletown B flying at the moment in the top of Ladies Division 1. Valkyries B not far behind them. It's going to be a very crucial game, this one.
And at Castle Rushen at 11:05 as well, Castletown C against Castletown D, a Southern derby.
Another Southern derby. I mean, this league's got 3 Castletown teams in, so the chances are of a Castletown derby is quite high each week. You'd favour the C team to come out on top, but don't rule out the D team, giving them a good game.
Okay, final game in Ladies Division 1, 25-4, Vikings B against Backers B at King William's College.
That's going to be an interesting one, I reckon. Vikings B so far have had a good start, but then they've let a few things slip. And the same for Backers as well. They've had a good start, but then let a few things slip. This one, I think, Might be a draw on this one. I'm gonna stay on the fence on this one.
Okay, that's a safe move,
yeah.
I think. Men's Division 2, 25-1 at the NSC. Valkyries C against Vikings C.
That's going to be an interesting one as well. Both the two games in this division look really close. This league, of course, only having the 4 teams in, it's making things really close. Valkyries C, I think, will probably come away with it, but Vikings C have looked really good so far.
Okay, staying in Men's Division 2, 25-4, Castletown C against Bacchus Colts at the NSC.
That one I think will be a good end-to-end game, that one. Bacchus Colts full of youth and, I won't call them senior players, experienced players, yes. If they're listening, they'll know which ones I'm talking about. As for Castletown, again, full of youth, and there's a few experienced players in there too. I won't. Shall we name one? Good evening, Kenny. I know you're listening. But yes, that one I think will be a very good game. I think that one will. I think it might end as a draw on that one.
Okay, penultimate division to look at then. Ladies Division 2, 25-1 at Ramsey Garden Centre sees Harlequins B entertain at Ramsey B.
Yeah, that's going to be a real close one for these two sides. Very evenly matched, and I think Harlequins B will probably come away with it.
At 2:05, Castletown E against Valkyries C at Castle Rushen.
Again, another very evenly matched game between two sides, very evenly matched. Valkyries C will be delighted with their cup run, getting that win in the plate last weekend, as will Vikings Z as well. So they'll be coming both into this game on a good run of form.
And the final one in Ladies Division 2, Vikings C against Bacchus C at King Williams College at 2:05.
Yeah, but Vikings C will be wanting to make amends from last week, from the last league action where they drew with Harlequins B. For Bacchus C, though, 2 wins coming into this in league action. I'm going to go for Bacchus C.
Okay, and finally, just got time to squeeze. He's in the mixed under-15s league. It's Harlequins against Ramsey Rogues and Rascals at Ramsey at 25-10.
I'm going to go for a Harlequins win on that one.
And at 25-4, Castletown Sabres against Valkyries at Castle Rushen.
I'm going to go for a Valkyries win.
And the final one, Ben, at 5 o'clock, Backers against Vikings B at King Williams College.
I'm going to go for a Backers win on that one.
Thank you very much, Ben. Sorry to rush you through those last ones there. You're back tomorrow on Full-Time and Classifieds from 4 o'clock on AM 1368 and Manx Radio on DAB. And just before we wrap up, we've got time to tell you about a Manx Grand Prix regular of the last few years. French rider Lancelot Unisart has announced he's planning to make his TT debut in 2025. Speaking on Manx Radio's Journey to a Dream podcast, he says he's expecting some big changes, but is looking forward to what he calls the step up.
2025... big change. I'm going to the TT, finally, stepping up. So yeah, I'm going to the TT Super Sport and Super Twin classes. I've done them out for 9 years now. I started on classic bikes and 400s. And after my win in 2019, I thought, well, now I need to step up on another class. So I bought the 600. And in some ways, I was lucky because 2020, nothing happened. 21 either. So I got something like a year and a half to learn the bike. I came back in 22 with the 600. I've done the mounts 3 times on 600, and now it's time to step up.
Are you anticipating it to be quite different?
I mean, the difference is it is different and not in some ways. The thing is, we'll be coming from the fastest on the track, nearly. I'm not the fastest, but I mean the fastest group on track to the slowest, and the paddock will be going from when we are on tarmac ground and nice one, and probably going into the grass. So yeah, we're going from the top end of one event to the back end of the other one. But it's just sometimes you need to do it. You need to step up and try to be with the best. I know on track it won't be easy. I've seen now that the sessions are split with 600 and 1000, so I won't have that trouble getting passed by a much, much quicker machine. But I mean, the riders, they're pretty quick, so I need to learn from them.
French regular at the Manx Grand Prix, Lancelot Unisart, speaking ahead of his TT debut in 2025. And don't forget, you can listen to the full interview on the Journey to a Dream podcast, available at the podcast section at manxradio.com. That's it for Friday Sport Preview. Thanks very much to Tony, Dave and Ben. Paul Moran will be here between 12 and 4 tomorrow afternoon with Saturday Live, keeping you up to date with everything happening in sport on the island and further afield. And then from 4 o'clock, Ben Cunningham will be here with the full-time show and Saturday Sport Classified.